Good afternoon and welcome. Hopefully and it's been a great conference with a lot of great information. I'm sure many of you are approaching kind of the information overload stage, but hoping you've got a little bit of room left here for our session this afternoon, really around DAM ROI versus DAM ROI. And we certainly hope most of you are looking for the former, but we're going to talk through 5 overlooked initiatives to help you maximize your DAM ROI. So by way of introductions, I'm James Wanke, Senior Implementation Consultant here at Widen. We are located in Madison, Wisconsin, and I work with all of our customers who are looking to stand up their DAM solution initially, as well as existing customers really looking to enhance or improve what they've already established. Now, just by way of context here, Widen, we are a cloud-based DAM leader serving more than 700 organizations worldwide. So naturally, we serve a diverse setting of customers, variety of industries, variety of organization sizes. We were founded back in 1948, been doing DAM for the better part of 20 years. We're about 150 employees strong, and as I mentioned, based out of Madison, Wisconsin. Let's turn our attention, though, for today's discussion really around ROI. What I've got on the screen here is many of the different definitions and or terms, factors that can really pertain or add up to ROI or lack of ROI. Now, what I will say off the bat is that all of these and your definition of ROI really depends on a variety of things. Some of those factors can include the industry that you're in. Healthcare ROI, and organizational ROI often looks different than technology companies, as well as consumer goods companies. All of those certainly play a role in what ROI means to you. Organizational maturity is another one. Whether you're a multinational with 50,000 employees or a small startup with 50 to 100 employees, ROI is certainly going to vary and be impacted there as well. And last but not least, your platform use cases, among other things. What you see on the screen on the left-hand side, though, is that ROI is normally built around decreases in costs or decreases in time spent. And so decreases in costs for workflows and rework, as well as reduction of risk in terms of lawsuits. On the right side, we see a number of metrics related to increases in revenues, which is always welcome at every organization, at least that I've ever been a part of, along with self-sufficiency, time to market, and of course, promoting the brand in the proper way. So long story short, ROI doesn't have a solid definition because there are so many different variables, but likely incorporates some sort of combination of these type of elements for you. We turn our attention to the other side of the coin, ROI. This one's a little bit harder to define. So I've opted for photos or images rather than actual definition here. Looking at ROI as we just defined it, that would be, hey, high five. We just found the correct asset. We didn't have to search for it for very long. We know we're using the right asset. This is excellent. This is exactly what we're hoping for. On the other hand, right below it is ROI. Now, I don't know the background of this photo, so I'm just kind of making up my own story here, but I'm imagining that the gentlemen in the back here are looking on a mobile device saying, hey, I think this is the right one. I think this is the one we should use, but I'm not entirely sure. While the gentleman in front looks like he's been searching for hours for the right asset, maybe has a deadline that he's working against to maybe send out a campaign email or something of that sort. And, it's just a frustrating experience all around. So as we're defining ROI, that's really return on why did we do that? Or what did we do that for? So that's really how we're defining ROI, which certainly we're trying to avoid here. So we're going to talk through how you can work towards ROI in favor of ROI. So we're going to talk about 5 overlooked initiatives. Certainly there's more than that impact ROI, but we're just really going to focus on 5 for the purpose of today's discussion. First and foremost is a defined DAM strategy. Now, this one often gets overlooked, I think, because everyone comes in with a strategy to say, hey, we know why we want a DAM. We want that single source of truth. We want all of our content in one location, which is true. That is a strategy. That is something that defines what you're after. However, it is missing a lot of the key components of the successful strategy. So a successful strategy really helps plan your ROI by first and foremost setting strategy first before we really get into the configurations and the details of what our solution is going to do. Without that information, it's really hard to make informed and educated decisions around what it is that our configurations are serving. So I'm not here to say that if you don't have a strategy and you've already implemented a DAM, you're playing a losing game here. But what I am here to say is it's never too late to start. It's never too late to redefine your strategy. And there's no better time to do that than before you start implementing your DAM. So define strategy first before you begin those configurations. Be specific. The strategy, as I mentioned before, is not just a blanket statement of this is a single source of truth. Really, this really should dial into the people, the process, the technologies that are involved, the roles they're going to play, and how they play into the overall strategy. What also is important is not only are you going to document what is in scope, but also include what might be out of scope. And by, that is intentionally out of scope. So those might be things that you're prioritizing for a later phase, or that you're just not prepared to tackle quite yet within that initial strategy. It's always good to document those so that as those discussions arise, you can point to your strategy and say, you know what, we talked about that. It just wasn't in our initial strategy today. Last but not least, make sure that strategy is evolving with your organization. Certainly, we've all evolved our organizations, especially over the last 18 to 24 months with the state of the world today. But even more than that, our businesses are evolving every day. And so we need to adjust that strategy to make sure it keeps up with our organization. And thus, the strategy should be a living and breathing document that evolves with us. So strategy is really knowing today why and how we're going to win tomorrow. Now, if you need a little bit of help with strategy, if you're saying, you know what, you're right, James, we do need a strategy, but I just don't know where to start, I would point you to this book. Playing to Win by A.G. Lafley and Roger Martin is a fantastic book. It lays out a simplistic universal model that you can adapt for your own strategy. It will lay out how they've used it, how they ideated upon it, and how they applied it to strategy. But the good news is it's really flexible, really easy to use in a variety of circumstances. So I'd point you there if you're looking for a strategy, but that's number one. First and foremost, start with strategy. Number two is a DAM admin and sponsor or champion. We're going to use sponsor and champion as interchangeable words here, but when I use those phrases, I'm really speaking of the executive leadership or the leader of this initiative from a executive position. Now, how do those individuals contribute to the ROI? Well, first and foremost, they establish credibility. Not only are we signing up for a new tool in a DAM, or maybe it's a new DAM solution that we're replacing an existing one, but that sponsor or champion provides the initial credibility and the buy-in that this truly is an organizational decision and something that is driven by the leadership team. The dedicated admin or a team that's responsible for maintaining the site really proves the organization is also committed to its success. Hey, we're not only purchasing the tool, we're purchasing and allocating the individuals or the resources to ensure that this is successful. Not only does that sponsor or champion establish credibility, but they can also provide guidance along the way. They can assist with ensuring that our DAM strategy aligns with our organizational strategy. And they can also, they've likely been a part of similar projects in the past. So they're a great resource for forecasting potential risks and or challenges and helping us navigate those throughout the project. Last but not least, we certainly hope that we've scoped out the solution and got the resources and the budget that we need. But if that's not the case, or a new growth initiative comes up where maybe we need some additional budget or resources on our side, that sponsor is then also going to have a much better understanding of the value and the reason why we're behind that ask. So lots of different ways that the sponsor and champion, as well as a DAM admin, impacts the ROI. Now, speaking of DAM admin, got a couple stats here for you just to really apply this in the real world. And this is all coming from our customer satisfaction survey back from 2016, but certainly still relevant today. If we look at the upper left, those are the percentage of organizations that populated the survey that have at least one person that's dedicated more than 50% of their time to the DAM, and the lower half being those that have less than 50%. So, 1 in 5 are is the amount of organizations that have greater than 50% individual allocated to the DAM. Now, if we look in the bottom right, this is really just showcasing, okay, based on those organizations, here's the return on investment that they're getting from that additional spend on that admin or that resource that is dedicated to the dam. So you can see far and away those that have an admin that's allocated at least 50% of the time to the tool are really getting so much more in terms of assets, downloads, repurposing, etc. All the numbers add up here to show that that is certainly worth the investment. Number 3 is going to be site governance and training documentation. Now, I'd be lying to you if I said this is my favorite topic to talk about and my favorite topic to dive into, but I do not question its importance and its role within the success of a DAM solution. So when we talk about governance and training documentation, we are referring to really the process, the documents that outline our processes and those that we're going to give to our users to make sure they get onboarded the right way. So the processes I'm talking about are any use case that that our DAM is used for, whether that be some sort of integration, whether it's as simple as uploading and or downloading from the site, should be defined within our training documentation and our governance. The details that are included here should certainly include who is responsible for each step, what's necessary in order to mark things as complete, and what happens, and really the why behind we're taking each of these steps within the solution. These, again, really should dive into very specific tasks such as uploading, who's tagging, what are they tagging, who's approving or adding new users. So there are no questions, and we don't have others that are just kind of creating or paving their own path based on how they think the tool should work. If you'll bear with me here, it's to start a football season here in the US, but think of the governance as really the playbook or the document that houses all of the scenarios that could come up, how we're going to address them, and how we're going to apply those solutions or those plays based on the stage of the game that we find ourselves at. So the playbook is really the governance, and the training materials are what is really the customer or the user facing document that is going to represent that. All right, so moving on to number 4 here, one of my favorite topics and one of the things that I would certainly put near the top of overlooked initiatives is change management. It sounds easy. It's more challenging to execute successfully than you would believe, but it is such an important indicator and contributor to ROI. So change management, as we define it, really addresses the people side of the ROI. So we could have the best tool, we could go about and create the best site possible for our users to use. But if we can't get them to adopt and we can't get them to utilize the DAM in the way that we've defined it, it's really all for naught. And so the change management side is critically important to the success and the ROI of our platform. Now, when we talk about change management, we're talking about creating plans for a variety of things that are going to contribute to the people side of change here. So a sponsor plan is often a great idea. So our sponsor or champion knows exactly what their role is in the project. Communications plan is a big one. How and what are we going to communicate to our users? Who's going to deliver that message? When is that message going to go out? And what are the potential action items we're asking for from those messages? As well as a training plan, which kind of goes into what we just talked about with number 3, is having those materials available, but then also having a plan of how we're going to train individuals and when. So including a cadence, a message, audience for each communication is really critical. And I'll showcase an example of that, what a communication plan could look like here in just a minute. The change management also really allows our users to not feel caught off guard. Most individuals do not like feeling surprised or caught off guard in terms of a change that is going to require them to do something different. So by involving them early, communicating with them often, and sending them the right message in terms of what is being asked of them, builds awareness of the changes that are going to be needed. It also, creates the desire for them to change by establishing what is the WIFM, or the what's in it for me. And that's really what everybody's concerned about, of course, when they go to make a change or choose whether or not they're going to adopt to this change. Last but not least, I want to make clear that change management is not just something that happens before and during the launch of a new solution. this really should be something that lives on throughout and after we launch the solution. So reinforcing that change. This can be things like feedback surveys or open office hours that we invite users to attend to provide us with feedback, so that we're making sure to keep in touch, and we're making and keeping that change management initiative alive and well throughout the life cycle of our DAM solution. So we talked about communications plan. It can really be as simple as a spreadsheet. Here's one that we like to use here at Widen in terms of documenting what type of communication it is, what is the goal of that communication, who's going to be responsible for sending that out, and then how often are we going to do that? Is that a one-time communication? Is that something that we do on a set cadence? All really good things to document in a central location. That way there are no questions. We can add these dates and these things to calendars, so they're not forgotten about, and just really refer back to whatever format that communication plan is in. So format doesn't really make the difference. It's really just having a plan and sticking to that plan, which ultimately makes the difference. All right, number 5, as we wrap up here in our last couple of minutes, is really benchmarking, measuring, and reporting on the ROI regularly. Now that may seem, very intuitive and natural to say, well, naturally, if we're going to achieve ROI, we need to be able to report and prove that. And that's certainly the case, because ROI and metrics really validate our success. Now, how do they do that, and how do we make sure that what we're reporting on is truly measured successfully, and we're measuring the right things, is making sure that we measure against the metrics that prove our progress. Ultimately, this should also tie back into number 1, which is our strategy document, to say, hey, our metrics are going to prove that we're executing against that strategy and we're doing what we said we will. It's also important to establish some pre-DAM benchmarks so that you have something to go off of in those early months as you launch. You really don't want to be caught in the dark to say, hey, we've launched this tool, looks like people are using it, it looks like people are downloading, but I don't really know how that changes or what workflows have changed and or how much time savings we have, because I don't know what we were doing or what we were measuring before. So start benchmarking those early if you can, and making sure that those carry over as you launch your updated solution. Often we get the question of, well, how do I measure ROI? Give me some metrics that I should be tracking. And unfortunately, that really depends on what your definition of ROI is. And I also often encourage people not to get so focused in the quantitative metrics. Often qualitative metrics tell half or even more of the story here. So try and combine hard data that you can get from your solution with some qualitative data. How is this impacting your users' job satisfaction? What is this eliminating from their plate that maybe they're able to allocate that time now to other tasks that they were hired to do, rather than things that they've been forced to do based on processes? User feedback surveys, all of those type of things are great qualitative metrics to also incorporate into your ROI discussions. Last but not least, make sure you have a set cadence that you're reporting your successes and or your ROI metrics to your leadership team. Not only does this hold your DAM team accountable for achieving and tracking and working towards those metrics and that ROI, but it also keeps DAM as a regular topic of conversation amongst that leadership team. Doesn't let them forget about it, and keeps that ROI that you have established top of mind for them. So that way, when you go to talk about initiatives or expansion of the DAM solution, they'll already know the story, they'll be familiar, and they'll know what value you're already bringing through the existing DAM. So validating, benchmarking, measuring, and reporting. In terms of kind of formulas that can be used, these are just a few examples here. Now, I'm not going to talk through this in detail. There's more information on widen.com/ROI if you're interested. But some of the ROI metrics that are commonly reported on is time to value. It can be a kind of a simple formula, as you see here on the left side, in terms of what is the amount of time before we're recouping that existing investment in the DAM. And then on the right side, how much are we spending on searching, and how does that differentiate before and after DAM? How much time are we spending on content distribution before and after the DAM, and kind of playing the difference there. So devise your own formulas. Again, reference that site if you're looking for more help in terms of quantitative formulas to assist you. As we wrap up here, I'll just recap our 5 overlooked initiatives that I would encourage you to focus on. Number 1, strategy. Number 2, DAM admin and sponsor. Number 3, governance and training. Number 4, change management. And number 5, benchmarking benchmarking, measuring, and reporting on ROI regularly.